Hello and welcome back to 4FS Gaming. There are a lot of YouTube videos about General Grievous in Star Wars Battlefront 2. Some of them praise him, some revile him, but in this video we are going to look very closely at what he can actually do, and what kind of things make him a real threat on the battlefront. The information in this video has been obtained through testing in arcade, so it should be pretty real in terms of gameplay. Let's cover exactly what Grievous is, his attributes if you will. Grievous has 800 health. This is high, higher than most other heroes and villains. After taking damage, it takes 4.5 seconds for his health regeneration to begin, which is a tiny bit on the slow side. While regenerating, Grievous will regain 50 points per second, which is the standard for heroes. Grievous can also regenerate 250 points of health in total. Now this is a very high amount of regeneration, and it can be increased further with the Beating Heart star card. When upgraded, Grievous is capable of regenerating 350 points of health, which is almost half of his total. This means if you can escape combat, heal and then return, Grievous should have enormous longevity. He also has access to the Cyborg Rage star card, which is an unconditional health on kill star card. That's the best kind, which means he has even more ways to get back his significant health pool. One thing that somewhat tempers this amazing health management is that Grievous is big, and that really does matter. He is a huge target with a massive hitbox, so you will find that he seems to take damage a lot faster than say someone like Maul or Yoda. As for movement, he has that standard dash, an extended height jump that seems to be similar to Yoda's, but not as high as most lightsaber users. He also has a medium run speed. He seems to be faster than Vader, but obviously not as quick as Luke. Grievous can also block with his lightsabers. The difference is he cannot deflect blasters accurately. He can still prevent damage to himself while blocking, but he can't aim the bolts back at his opponents. Now we need to talk about his basic lightsaber attacks, because this is probably the Cyborg's biggest distinguishing feature. He hits like a truck. With 130 damage per swing, he is by far the hardest hitting lightsaber user there is. He can swing in a combination of 4 strikes. The full sequence takes about 2.5 seconds, allowing him to deal 520 damage in that time. That breaks down to around 208 damage per second. He also has a jump attack which seems to have a slightly faster startup and still deals the 130 damage, so it's a pretty good initiator. And then he has a star card that can further upgrade this damage. At the cost of an extra 40% stamina consumption, Sith Trained will provide Grievous with up to an extra 30 damage per swing, bringing his total to 160. Even getting the green version of this card allows him to one-shot all but heavy troopers in Galactic Assault, which is something that no other hero can do. This star card is in my opinion a must, and it allows him to slice through troopers and heroes alike with ease. Now the cost on stamina will mean that he is generally incapable of blocking after an attack sequence, so keep that in mind because movement then becomes your only form of defense. So looking at his basic stats, Grievous's strengths are that he has lots of health, and lots of ways to regenerate a fair chunk, if not all of that health. He also has devastatingly powerful lightsaber strikes. His weaknesses are that he is a huge target, he's not incredibly fast, and he definitely doesn't have the best block. This means that he is not a tank. If you play him like a tank, you will probably die. Grievous is a lot more like a hybrid assassin, striking with extreme damage and then escaping to make use of that wonderful regeneration. Now of course I haven't yet talked about his abilities, and this is where I start to have my personal problems with his design. So far I am very happy, he fills a nice role and takes some skill to use effectively, but then you realise that at least 2 of his abilities are bugged beyond uselessness. Let's talk about Thrust Surge. This is a lunge attack that has great range. It can even be further extended with the Jedi Killer star card. It also deals a solid 160 damage, which can be tuned up to 200 damage with the Momentum star card. It even has a reasonably snappy cooldown of 13 seconds. On top of all of that, it has a knockdown effect which should make it a very strong ambush initiator, allowing Grievous to lunge into combat, damaging and disabling an enemy before unleashing a barrage of strikes. The problem is that this ability needs to lock on to a target in order to hit, and this seems really bugged. Sometimes it works, but often it just lunges at the target. Your sabers hit them, and nothing happens. The ability has a lengthy animation too, so most of the time when you use this, it just gives your enemies about 2 seconds to pummel you with damage. Because of this, I cannot really recommend ever using it at the moment, unless your target is stun locked onto a wall or immobilized in some other way. It's such a cool ability, but at the moment it just kind of feels like Phasma's staff was when that first launched. Then we have Unrelenting Advance. Don't get me started on Unrelenting Advance. This is completely broken as well. It's supposed to be Grievous's signature move. He spins up his sabers and deflects all damage while devastating anyone that gets close. Except the block is bugged, and even then the cone in front of Grievous, in which incoming damage is blocked, is very small. This means that when facing a group of enemies you will likely take massive damage while using this ability, especially as it slows you down a lot while active. In addition, the blocking during this ability does not block force powers or other stun or knockback effects like a normal block might, so every time you use this in Heroes vs Villains, you will be stunned or thrown out of the animation. As for its damage, this too is pitiful. Each hit to enemies touching your blades will only deal 75 damage, and this is only applied every 1.7 seconds. The whole ability lasts for 5 seconds, so even if an enemy sits in your blades for the entire duration, and the hit detection is working properly, and they don't walk backwards out of your very, very slow Unrelenting Advance, they will still only take a maximum of 300 damage. You could inflict that with 2 normal lightsaber swings, without using an ability, without sacrificing your mobility or turn speed, and in a fraction of the time. In its current state, just don't use this ability. Even with star cards, it's not worth it. The only silver lining here is a cooldown of 11 seconds, which means you can spam a worthless ability, and when they fix it, it'll make it really, really strong. I hope. Okay then, so what about Claw Rush? Now this is a really good ability, and for the most part it works as intended. It gives Grievous something he desperately needs as a hybrid assassin, and that is mobility. Claw Rush remains active for 3.5 seconds, and during this time he can move very quickly. This is enough to escape most tricky situations, as it also reduces his hitbox size considerably, and with the Cowardly Retreat star card can provide damage reduction of up to 90%. This does not mean that it negates 90% of incoming damage, only that it increases Grievous's damage resistance by 90%, which means he will take just over half damage while using the Claw Rush with this star card. The Claw Rush can also be used to chase down prey. It deals damage to enemies you hit when using the ability, and can proc multiple hits on the same targets if you are in contact for long enough. Each hit is 130 damage, which is enough to kill even slightly damaged troopers. Using Claw Rush in a circle with lots of troopers can also clear a room pretty quickly. Oh, and did I mention that this ability knocks down those that it damages, allowing you to escape even more easily, or prime a target for slaughter if you use it to ambush. There is even the star card Line Up Weaklings, which might just be one of his best, as it can increase the Claw Rush damage to 180 after a single hit is procced. This means that claw rushing through a dense corridor in Galactic Assault can do extreme damage, instantly killing every assault, specialist and officer that you touch. And all of this on an ability with a cooldown of only 13 seconds. Well, yes, sometimes it does bug out and running into a wall will cancel the ability, but most of the time it works really well. So despite the fact that he has 2 abilities that are almost useless at this point, I do not think Grievous really suffers for it. He has great longevity in his health management, he hits harder than anyone else with a lightsaber, and he has a strong mobility ability allowing him to fulfill his role as a hybrid assassin. He is balanced through being a big target and having weak blocks. I almost fear that when, or if, DICE get around to fixing the hit detection on his thrust surge, let alone the damage deflection on Unrelenting Advance, he may just become too strong, but then again, it would be absolutely glorious. If you are having trouble with Grievous, it is likely because you need to upgrade a couple of his cards. He does seem to be very star card dependent, with the 2 health regen cards being important, the increased damage card being almost essential, and his final Claw Rush damage increase card seems strong as well, although I have not been able to test this against real players because, well, I'm just not one of those people that needs to get new heroes to level 40 in the first week. Let me know what you think of Grievous in the comments below. Like and subscribe to see more, and as always, thank you for watching.